In every love story, there comes a moment when the heart pauses, a moment when silence speaks louder than any argument. Episode 59 of Ilzam. Ishq brings us right to that moment because tonight, every unspoken truth becomes heavier. Every hesitation becomes sharper. And every promise begins to demand an answer. This is the episode where trust stands on edge. Where choices finally collide. And where the accusation of love becomes impossible to ignore. Episode 59 unfolds slowly, quietly, but with purpose. Nothing loud, nothing dramatic, but everything meaningful. For weeks, the story has revolved around shifting loyalties and unresolved tensions. Humayoun Ashraf's character has been carrying the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He wants to protect everyone, but somehow he keeps losing the very people he tries to defend. Malik's character stands at a crossroads of her own. Her heart knows what it wants, but her circumstances keep pulling her in a different direction. Their world has become a mix of assumptions, unanswered questions, and decisions that cut deeper with time. Episode 59 arrives after emotional setbacks that never fully healed. Misunderstandings grew roots. Secrets gained power. And each choice left a scar. Where the earlier episodes created distance, this one begins facing the reasons behind it. And that is where the story begins to shift. The episode opens with tension already in the room. Humayoun's character enters quietly, but the silence he carries is not ordinary. It's the kind of silence that comes after trying too hard for too long. Chooses every word with care. He speaks softly, but the distance between him and Maria's character feels wider than ever. She listens, but something holds her back, something unspoken, something she still cannot share. That becomes the first turning point. He finally asks the question he has ignored for too long. A simple question, but one that carries the weight of the entire story. Why do you keep pulling away? His voice stays calm. No anger. No blame. Just a man who wants to understand. Maria's character looks away, not because she has no answer, but because she has the answer. And speaking it would change everything. She talks about the pressure she has been facing, expectations she never asked for, responsibilities she never chose. And the constant fear of disappointing everyone around her. She explains that she is not running from him. She is running from the fallout, from the consequences she knows will follow if she chooses her heart. Her confession is quiet but honest, and it becomes the emotional center of the episode. The story shifts to the family dynamics that have been shaping their choices. A disagreement unfolds within the household. It's not explosive, but layered. Each person speaks from a different fear. Fear of losing reputation, fear of losing authority, fear of losing control over the life they're trying to manage. Drama becomes less about one couple and more about how every decision affects every relationship around them. Later, Humayoun's character faces a moment where he must take a stand. He speaks in defense of Maria's character, not out of impulse, but out of conviction. His voice remains steady, his expression controlled, but his commitment is clear. It becomes one of his strongest scenes in the episode. This time, he is not justifying himself. He is not negotiating. He is choosing a side, and he chooses with clarity. The reactions around him shift instantly. Some quietly support him, some hesitate, some disapprove, without saying a word. But the moment matters because it marks the beginning of a new direction. Maria's character experiences her own emotional turning point later in the episode. She sits alone, replaying every conversation, every hesitation, every fear. For the first time, she allows herself to admit the truth she avoided for so long. isn't afraid of losing him. She is afraid. She might push him away by holding back too much. Her performance stays subtle. No dramatic breakdown, just a quiet realization that feels powerful in its simplicity. Toward the end of the episode, the story introduces an unexpected visitor. Their arrival brings information, not a shock, not a twist, but truth that changes the balance. Misunderstanding suddenly makes sense. A loose thread finally connects to the larger picture. This information shifts the tone of the episode and sets up the conflict for the episodes ahead. The closing scene brings the two leads together once again. They stand in the same space, but the uncertainty between them lingers. Maria's character speaks. First, she explains parts of what she has been holding inside. Not everything, but enough to show she is no longer hiding. He listens closely, not to argue, not to convince, just to understand. For a moment, everything feels still, not resolved. But honest. They end the conversation without a promise, without a reconciliation, but with a small step forward, a moment suspended between hope and doubt. Episode 59 matters because it breaks the pattern the story has been following. It shifts from assumptions to clarity. From silence to expression. From hesitation to intention. Both characters begin questioning the stories they were told, the fears they accepted, and the expectations placed on them. The episode also gives space to the supporting characters. Their influence becomes stronger and more connected to the main conflict. Their fears, their opinions, and their choices create a chain reaction that the leads can no longer ignore. This episode prepares the ground for what comes next, a chapter where truths won't stay hidden. Where choices will have consequences, where love will be tested not by emotion, but by courage. Episode 59 is not loud, but it is heavy, not dramatic, but deeply emotional. It takes two people who have been drifting apart and brings them closer to understanding. Forces them to confront what they never said. And it leaves them standing at the edge of a decision they can't avoid much longer. As the episode ends, one question remains. When the heart finally speaks, will they listen? And that is where the story prepares to turn. The story moves forward from the quiet tension of episode 59 into a deeper, emotional space. The night feels heavier. Every character carries the weight of their choices, even if they are not ready to admit it. Humayoun's character steps outside for a moment of air. The world around him is calm, but his thoughts are anything but. He tries to replay the conversation he just had with Maria's character, her hesitation. Her fear, her unwillingness to let herself choose happiness without thinking of the consequences. He understands her far more than he lets on. That understanding doesn't make the weight any lighter. It just makes it quieter. Inside the house, Maria's character sits in the same place where he left her. She hasn't moved, not because she is waiting, but because she is overwhelmed by everything she finally said. She knows she opened a door she had kept locked for too long. And now she wonders what will come through it. Her mind drifts to all the moments she avoided the truth, the moments she pretended she didn't care, the moments she chose silence instead of clarity. For the first time, she sees how far that silence has taken them. Not forward, not backward, just stuck in a place where neither can fully step toward the other. The house feels unusually quiet. Too quiet, and that quiet begins to press on her. She finally stands up and walks to the hallway, only to run into one of the family members, who has always watched her decisions closely. Their expression is unreadable. Not warm. Not cold. Just calculating. They ask her a question she didn't expect. Are you sure you know what you're doing? The words feel simple, but they cut deeper than intended, because she isn't sure. She has never been sure. Not about the future. Not about her place in this house, and especially not about the path her heart keeps pointing toward. But instead of explaining, she simply nods. Not out of certainty, but out of exhaustion. The family member watches her carefully before walking away. Their expression says more than words ever could. They know something has shifted. They may not approve, but they understand that the situation is slipping out of their control. Meanwhile, Humayoun's character returns inside, his mind calmer, but his heart not settled. He notices her standing alone, staring at nothing in particular. For a moment, he hesitates, not because he doesn't want to go to her, but because he doesn't want to push her while she's already overwhelmed. He steps closer anyway, slow, measured. She turns toward him, surprised, not because he's there, but because she didn't expect him to come back so soon. He asks a question not with intensity, but with quiet sincerity. Are you all right? She nods. But he knows the difference between truth and politeness. He doesn't press further. He just stays near her, offering presence instead of questions. That small gesture becomes another turning point. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just meaningful. She finds enough courage to speak again. Not about the future. Not about expectations. Just about her fear. The fear of disappointing him. The fear of making a decision that hurts. Everyone involved. Her voice stays soft, but every word feels heavier than the last. He listens, and this time, he answers without hesitation. He tells her she doesn't owe him perfection. She doesn't owe him certainty. She doesn't owe him a perfect answer right now. All she owes him is honesty. That simple assurance becomes the kind of moment that stays with a person long after everything changes. She finally breathes a real breath, one she hasn't taken in weeks. But the moment doesn't last long, because the unexpected visitor from earlier in the evening requests to meet them both again, this time with urgency. The tone shifts instantly. The environment tightens. A sense of concern spreads across the house. They walk into the room to find the visitor holding a small envelope. Nothing dramatic. No shocking reveal. Just a quiet, sealed envelope that seems to carry more weight than expected. The visitor explains that the information inside could change the direction of the conflict they've been facing. It contains details about an incident that has fueled misunderstandings for weeks. A misunderstanding that many people use to control decisions. A misunderstanding that shaped how the family treated them. The envelope is placed on the table. No one moves. No one speaks. Everyone seems afraid of what opening it might reveal. Humayoun's character is the one who finally reaches forward. He opens it slowly. Calmly. Not out of curiosity, but out of a sense of responsibility. Inside is a single sheet of paper. And as he reads it, his expression changes, not dramatically. Just enough for Maria's character to know something important has shifted. He looks up at her. There is no anger. No frustration. Just clarity. Real, unmistakable clarity. He hands her the paper. She reads it. Her hands tighten slightly because the truth it reveals touches directly on the fear she tried to explain earlier. It proves something she wanted to believe, but was too afraid to hope for. The misunderstanding they had been living under, the same one that fueled all the doubts, pressure, and silence, was never real. A mistake. An assumption. A miscommunication that spiraled into a storm. She feels a wave of relief and guilt all at once. Relief that the truth is finally clear. Guilt that she let the misunderstanding shape so many of her decisions. Humayoun's character senses her reaction. He steps closer again, this time without hesitation. He tells her one simple thing: we can move forward now. But only if you want to. The words hit her harder than any declaration because they carry no force. No demand. Just choice. A choice she didn't think she would be given so freely. She looks at him with a mixture of confusion and hope. For the first time, She feels safe enough to consider what moving forward might look like, but just when the air begins to settle, the family enters the room. The truth has reached them, and their reactions arrive fast. Some accept it instantly, some are shocked, some are quietly defensive, because truth removes excuses, and not everyone is ready for that. The episode closes on a still moment. The truth is out, the tension is shifting, and both leads stand together. Not as a couple, not as strangers, but as two people finally seeing the path clearly. What comes next will depend on the choices they make now, choices that can no longer hide behind misunderstandings or fear. Part 2 ends on that quiet note, a pause, a breath, a beginning disguised as an ending.